Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday Q&A session, where you get to ask us questions about the stocks that you're interested in investing in. Thanks for joining us today. We've got Marnus Picard, who's our investment analyst and does the mining stocks for us, who's going to be sharing his insights. And then we've got Sean, who'll be doing the technical bit. And then we'll throw the floor open to some questions. You're welcome to ask them outright by switching on your mic and camera, or you can, it'll be nice to put a face to the voice. And otherwise, you can type them as Marnus goes along. Just type them in the chat and we'll deal with them straight after. Thanks very much for joining us. Marnus, you can take it away. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Laurel. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's call on Sibanye-Stillwater. My name is Marnus Picard. As an executive summary, we'll quickly look at the macro environment. We'll have a look at PGM price performance relative to gold and some other precious metals. We look at the PGM sector and what's actually driving the price. And then we'll have a look at the miners' relative performance. Sibanye's recommendation remains as a hold. We'll dive a bit into the valuation later. We'll have a look at the recent Beatrix forced sale and also the Franco-Nevada streaming agreement. Sibanye also released a trading statement yesterday. So they expect the earnings per shares to improve between 80 to 82% to 245 cents and 271 cents. Still mainly impacted by impairments due to lower palladium prices. That's for the medium to long-term consensus. And then the Stillwater West suspended operations that was in Q4. You can also expect about 200,000 ounces less than the guidance provided previously for 2025 due to that suspended operations. Just also the earnings per share is still to remain a loss. Headline earnings per share between 63 and 67 cents. It's more in line with what it was last year. The realized prices on the 4E PGM rand values are 16% lower than it was in 2023. And the 2E PGM in US dollars were 21% lower. FX rates was 10 cents lower than 2023. Production for 2024, SA PGM 4% higher, and then SA Gold 16% lower. That's due to the Kloof foreclosure and increased seismic activity. And then US PGMs were the only operations that missed guidance. All the others were in line. And you can have a look at the full year results expected to be released tomorrow. If we have a look at platinum, palladium, and rhodium prices over last year, you'll see that platinum is slightly up, palladium more or less in line, and then rhodium is also slightly up. You'll also see on platinum that it remains kind of range bound between the $900 an ounce to $1,100 an ounce, with the outlier of palladium, they're up to $1,200 an ounce in October. And that's due to the US asking the GS7 countries to increase sanctions on Russian palladium. That never took place, so that's why the price just came crashing down a little bit again and now found its feet. If we look at the relative performance in the commodities, you'll see that the gold price is still the outperformer, with copper, platinum, palladium, and rhodium kind of hugging each other there at the 5% to 10% increase for the last year, and then iron ore is down quite a bit. Iron ore is down mainly because of the construction industry in China. That's not doing so great. So we'll look how that plays out in the future. If we have a look at Implats and Sibanye, Implats, the outperformer over last year was Sibanye there at the bottom. It's trading at quite a deep discount. And we'll chat about the risk in Sibanye when we get to the valuation page, and that's why it's trading at a discount. You can see here the chart on the left, that's a drawdown chart. From the tops, it's currently down about 80%. That's over the last 10 years. And then the chart on the right is a 5-year chart to show the outperformance of Sibanye. It's still slightly higher than it is in the benchmark, but you can see how it's come down significantly over the last 3 or 4 years. If we dive a bit deeper in the PGM sector, the automotive industry is the big buyer of platinum, palladium, rhodium. Of platinum, about 40 to 50%, palladium 80%, rhodium 80%. we touched on these when we looked at Implats, but it's quite important to understand why the platinum prices are down and why it's not moving in a direction that's positive at the moment. The chart on the left shows what makes up the percentage of sales, of total sales, which cars, and you'll see that petrol and diesel made up the majority of cars back in the day. And if you look at the chart there in 2021, 2022, that's changed quite a bit, with diesel losing market share, petrol as well, and then your battery vehicles and your hybrid vehicles now starting to get adopted more in the markets, where it's increasing in the total number of cars sold. The chart on the right will show you the global sales of cars. While car sales are still very well and alive, you'll see that electrical cars make up such a larger percentage that actually normal internal combustion engine cars now make up such a smaller percentage of total car sales, or such a smaller number, that it's actually lower than 2010. If we dive a little bit deeper, looking country specific, you see that China is a bigger adopter of these battery cars. New cars sold in October 2024 was actually made up 50% of car sales. And then currently it still stays the same. They're doing quite well, but they are the larger adopter of the battery electrical vehicles and so forth sales in general. If we look at the European data in 2024 versus 2023, that's your section there on the bottom left, you see that the battery electrical vehicles sales of total new sales actually declined slightly, but your hybrids are now taken over, but petrol and diesel still losing ground. And just a bit of an interesting point, in 2015, diesel cars as a percentage of new cars was 50% of it, where currently you can see in 2023 it's low, it's around 14%, in 2024 that's now dropped below 13%. If we look at these recent transactions and agreements that Sibanye made last year, both of these transactions was announced in December. The first one was the Beatrix 4 shaft sale. So they sold that shaft to New Energy Metals. It's a listed company on the London Stock Exchange. The transaction value was 500 million rand, made up of two components. One is a cash component, 250 million rand, and then share component, 250 million rand. On the date of the transaction, or the date that it was announced, Sibanye owned 40% of New Energy Metals. The market cap of it currently is around 235 million rand. And it's a very small company. It's lost over 20% of its value since the announcement of this transaction. So it doesn't seem like it was a very good transaction. Franco-Nevada streaming agreement was an agreement with two streams. It was a gold stream and a platinum stream. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep in the numbers here, but it's basically gold, 1.1% of the total 4E PGMs mine in the concentrates. You deliver gold up to 87,500 ounces. Then gold stream 2 is 0.75 of the 4E PGM concentrate. And you deliver gold up to 237,000 ounces. And then gold stream 3 is, once you've reached that threshold, it's 80% of the gold contained in the life of the mine. Platinum 1% of the concentrate up to 48,000 ounces, and platinum 2 stream was 2.1% of the concentrate, up to 294,000 ounces. With this transaction, this Franco-Nevada streaming agreement, they've capped their upside on the price. They've received an 8.8 million rand upfront payment, but then they capped the upside in terms of, when on delivery, they only receive a 5% of the spot price for gold and platinum, where it changes to 10% of the total of the spot price once gold's been delivered more than that 237,000 ounces. So with this, we did a bit of a future value calculation, expecting growth rate on gold, platinum, bring it back to a present value at the WAC to see where we get to. And it's definitely been sold at a discount, which is, both these transactions seems like it was done to get cash, which we know Sibanye's balance sheet's not looking great. It's got a high level of debt. Platinum price are quite suppressed and muted at the moment, so which means I can't really count on that part of the business to make up for repayment of debt or reduce the debt. And this was the specific to the Franco-Nevada was a great transaction to do to raise capital without issuing more debt or raising capital by share issuance and so forth. There's no recoupment or minimum obligations for this Franco-Nevada streaming agreement. So on the offset of it, it looks like it's a great deal. If you do a bit of a calculation on a future value, do your calcs and bring it back to a present value, it's definitely sold at a bit of a discount. So if we look at the valuation of Sibanye, it's currently, we have an intrinsic value of 23 Rand 23 cents, which is 36% upside on the date we did this. So on the bear case, there's a probability of the bear playing out 35% with the share price going back to zero. Now, the zero needs to be explained because it's quite aggressive in terms of, share price going back to zero. But in any market correction that's significant or recession, we do not believe a platinum price follows, but we do not believe a platinum price below the $850 mark would be sustainable operations for Sibanye, which means they are likely to either need more debt or capital to survive. And with an already inflated debt value on the balance sheet, the share price might not do that well. Other factors to consider when you think of a lower PGM price, for instance, high inflation, which means higher interest rates, lower demand for cars, Trump's 25% tariff that he wants to put on import cars might have an effect and disrupt the markets. The Russian-Ukraine war ending, which means probably less sanctions on Russia, and the PGMs reaching the open market again, so increase in supply, lower prices. And more, there's also a probability of a bit more adoption of EVs into the future. And if it's a bit more aggressive than anticipated, you'll also see a lower uptake on demand for PGMs. Other reasons, we gave it a probability of 35% to the downside, which the two transactions we just looked at, it seemed aggressive. It seemed a bit desperate for cash. The CEO also resigned, or not resigned, he's retiring in September 2025. He is a long-standing CEO of the business, and we believe if he saw imminent upside, that he probably would have sticked around a little bit longer to get the benefit of it as well. Yep, that brings me to the end of my presentation. I hand over to Sean.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I can see that's the chart of Sibanye. That is until yesterday's close again. You can also see from the chart here that is the share price is trading below its 200-day moving average. So I'm calling the long-term trend bearish. In the medium term, the share price is also trading below its 20 and 50-day moving averages. But these two moving averages must still cross over each other and both point downwards before we can call a bearish trend. Saying that, in the shorter term, the share price is testing that support trend line or that support zone around about at 16.74 cents. And I see today it's bounced up a bit. That support is holding. It's trading around about 17 Rand at the moment. So on the downside, should that support not hold, we could expect that pullback to about the 15 Rand level. And in worst case scenario, possibly down right all the way down to that 13 Rand 88 level. Looking at the bottom there, you can see the MACD indicator. It has crossed into oversold territory, which is bearish, and is also trading below its trigger line, which also confirms the bearish signal as such. As Mona said now, we have an intrinsic value of 23.23. It's right up top there with a whole recommendation. But saying that, I think the share price has to move above all the moving averages as well as that long-term resistance trend line at around about the 18.45 cents level to trigger a change of trend to bearish. To bullish. Volume as such is basically neutral. So there could be hope. We'll see. Okay, that's how I see it.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Monas. I was listening to your valuation at $23 with a 36% upside, and sort of in the back of my mind, I had that transaction with the Beatrix 4 shaft, and I calculated quickly that they got paid about 350 million for a thing that's worth 500 million. That is a government type deal. So you could be right that they're desperate for cash. On the technical side here with Sean, looking at it also a little bit biased now because I changed my mind as you spoke about the risks. I thought, oh yes, maybe it's slightly cheap here and it's well supported, but I quite fancy, after you highlighted the risks, especially the war ending in Russia and so on, and the Russian platinum hitting the markets. I think the possibility for a further pullback is quite possible, and the trend should remain slightly bearish in the short term. It may even, Sean, as you said, go back and test that previous low at just below $14. So yeah, let's see if we've got any questions. Go to the chat quickly. No questions yet. Marnus, have they indicated who will follow up Neil Vroneman when he ducks in September?
Yes. Can't remember his name. I think it's Richard. He's been with the company for a few years. He's currently the head of operations of Africa. So they've already announced a successor. There was also a bit of a sudden announcement in January of another kind of high profile, I think it was a mergers and acquisitions head type of a position that not retired. He resigned kind of with immediate effect. So don't know if it's because of the CEO leaving or what's the story, but there was also a bit of a news event that I thought was a red flag.
Yes, there's a lot of politics and red flags here. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I think the positive part is it's an internal appointment of somebody that has been with the company for a while. So that's steady at least. But yeah. No questions, it seems. It seems you've covered everything, Marnus. Well done, man. So to summarize quickly, as I always do, could go down to 13.91. If you're feeling a bit nervous about it like I am now, then this could be a sell recommendation. And then at 13.91, I'm not even too sure that it's a buy recommendation with Marnus's 35% probability of the share price going even further south. But I mean, there's a lot of things that have to play out before that happens. I mean, we'd have to see a very large adoption of electrical or at least hybrid electrical vehicles around the world, which could take a while. And then, of course, a couple of other things that plays into the platinum price, like the Russia-Ukraine war, etc. I don't know if they talk about the war ending, but I've never seen Putin turn around on something that he set his mind on. I mean, he was president 3 times and then prime minister and then became president again. And every time he just changed the constitution. Okay, there's a good question from Colin. Colin says, how much does gold contribute to Sibanye?
So gold in 2023 was about 20%, 20 to 30%. I expect it to be around 30% level because of its gold price running and PGMs coming down. What is important to note just on the gold, it's got exposure to gold. It will help their balance sheet slightly, and the income statement will also a bit of a push on it. The operations is expensive. It's $2,200 an ounce for Sibanye, and a company like, for instance, that's Pure Gold, like Gold Fields, their cost to operate or to mine is around $1,700 an ounce. So it's very expensive gold operation that Sibanye runs.
So gold looks like a hedge for Sibanye, but it's so expensive that it's actually not.
It's going to help them a bit. It is profitable because of the gold price running. It's just also a risk if it comes down. What are they going to do then?
Yeah. Dennis says, does Sibanye have any lithium?
They don't mine lithium, but they are busy with that Calibre project where it's a bit of a refinery or a processing plant that they're setting up. They do expect that in the later quarters of 2025 to become operational.
Okay, and then Leon says there's a court case against them. And what risks does that pose? You aware of that?
I'm not aware of a court case at the moment. Sorry about that.
We can find out and get back to you.
Yep.
Pop us a mail and then we can try and find out and see if there's any further risk in that. Let's see. There's no more questions there. Any last questions? I don't see any. Okay, so we've summarized. A lot of risks remain. Share is way below intrinsic value. Doesn't look like a buy. Marnus has recommended a hold, highlighted some risks, and the technicals show that the downtrend should persist. The court case where the cost will be determined in September, Leon says. Leon, we're going to try and find out for you. And then once we get more details, then we'll try and get back to you. But like I say, pop me a mail at sorrel.snyman@PSG, and then we'll try and get you the info that you need, mate. Yeah, so that was it for Sibanye. Next week is Harmony. Funny thing, end of the month, payday, everybody will be happy. The world will be in harmony. We'll be talking harmony, and Marnus will be back, I guess. Hey.
Yes.
That's it. Perfect. Lekker. So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for attending our Q&A today. We'll see you next Thursday, same place, same time. Thank you.